Welcome back to Tiny Talk. We have some special guests in here today, Bridget and Jason, who represent Dwelling Check Home Inspections. And we'll be discussing things that you'll see out in the field, that they'll see out in the field in regards to home inspections, what you should be aware of, and why it's important to get a home inspection. Bridget, tell us a little bit about your company.
Okay, so Jason started Dwelling Check Home Inspections in 2018 in a little town called Brookville, Indiana. It's about 45 minutes west of Cincinnati, Ohio. So he was doing that up there for a couple of years, and I was working a corporate job, and we decided to make a life change, and we moved our business and our lives full-time to Florida in January 2021. So we relaunched Dwelling Check and kind of hit the ground running. I mean, we had to go out and join some realtor associations and do a lot of networking and things like that. But here we are going on we'll be 4 years pretty soon. And we're doing well and happy to be here.
Well, that's exciting. So your number one audience, the people you deal with most are realtors, right?
Correct. Yeah. We belong to 3 different realtor associations, so that gives us an opportunity to network with them at different events and be sponsors and just get out in front of them like that. And then, when you get work for somebody a time or two, then they like your work and they start referring their clients to you. So it kind of builds, just snowballs on its own.
I'm a customer, so
yes,
I know.
You are, yes.
I know how great you are.
Jason met you through kind of a different sort of a networking opportunity where he attended a home show.
Right.
So
that's where you found
there's all kinds of ways to get out and meet people, and that's just what you have to do. And move to an area like this where everyone is from somewhere else, and you can't say, oh, call this guy, he's my best friend or my relative or something like that. So you got to do a lot of groundwork, and so that's what we do.
All right. So Jason, tell us a little bit about some on the field. Tell us about you putting on those boots, hitting your head against those nails. Tell us some things that you're seeing now. Let's start with some new construction. I'm sure you've seen a lot of it going on. Are you mostly in Lehigh Acres?
No. We work anywhere from Northport, up in that area, all the way down to Golden Gates, Marco Island, down in there.
Okay.
Mainly around Fort Myers and Lehigh and Cape Coral area, but
new
Naples,
construction everywhere.
Bonita, new construction everywhere. Babcock Ranch, if anybody's familiar with that, we go out there quite often. Well, I'm going to start with something I do find quite often, but usually it's only going to be in a single story home that's over 2,200 square feet, where they would put in a little larger HVAC unit, maybe a 4-ton, maybe. So the outside, the condenser unit, it may call for a 35, 40, 45 amp breaker. Well, a lot of times when these electricians wire the house, they'll put a number 10 wire in, because most homes, 10 wire is good up to a 30 amp breaker, and most homes, small, average size home, that's sufficient. Right. But those larger homes, they'll come in and they'll just hook it up. Well, now, and he'll throw the breaker in there. So now you got an oversized breaker and an undersized wire. And I do find that quite often. And it's not like it's with different builders, different electricians,
right.
Not to name any. But, and the thing I hear that's kind of funny, a lot of times my client will be like, well, they had an inspection or the county looked at it, and it slips through. It slips through. I find that very often.
So what are some dangers of having an oversized circuit breaker and an undersized wire?
The wire's not heavy enough. I mean, it can pull enough amperage that it won't trip that breaker, and you could start having some overheating issues or melting a wire. Right. And like I said, and a lot of times, often it's not, depending on the size, I don't want to get into a lot of it, but you can, on the outside units, you'll have a minimum and a maximum ampacity. And a lot of times it's as simple, they don't have to run a new wire, they can just throw in maybe a smaller breaker. In a case where maybe it's a 35 amp breaker, sometimes a 30 amp will do the job. And a lot of times I will find where the cold and hot water are reversed of what we know what it's supposed to be, how it's marked. To some people that might not be a huge deal, but if you're spending, you know, $500,000-$600,000 on a new home, I think you would want it to be correct, you know. So we find that a lot.
That way you don't have to tell your guest, hey, it's opposite.
Well, think about a little kid. They're going to go in there and turn cold water on and it could come out scalding.
Very true.
I have found that on some sinks, but mainly on the mixer valves on showers and tubs.
Well, most of the times, these houses are already in their selling conditions, meaning they made it look beautiful, but what the customer doesn't know is anything behind the wall, up in the attic, closed behind an electrical panel. How deep do you dive into all
But most of the time, what I like to do is when I remove the cover and I'm looking at everything, I will like to, usually I go inside the home, and when it's a new home, usually sometimes there may be like a dryer, sometimes the appliances are there, sometimes they're not.
Right.
But if there's a dryer, an oven, a range, you know, I like to turn all the 220, I like to load the panel up. So I will turn the heat on, I will turn all the burners and the oven on simultaneously, the dryer, and run the hot water, you know. So we're loading that panel up, and then I'll go out and I will take my thermal imaging camera and I will look in that panel for, you know, anything heating up or loose wiring. Usually anything, you know, when you start getting over 130 degrees in a panel, that's when, you know, you could have, it's heating up. It shouldn't be getting much hotter than that. So when you see that, then, you know, and then I will back it up. I'll check it with a couple other guns, you know, to make sure, just to get a clear view if we're really getting, you know, oh, it's showing 155 degrees. Is this really what I'm seeing?
I can imagine you with a tool belt filled with different guns. Like, bam,
Yeah.
bam.
Well, you know, it's good to verify.
That'd be a
those
great
things.
photo for the logo, right? Just
So on the flip side of that, so then when we're finished there, the plumbing is all so there is like 2-story homes. So you want to always start, you know, work your way down. So I just don't turn the faucets on and verify if there's hot or cold water. You know, a lot of times, you know, I like to fill the tub up and then drain it. You know, see if it holds water, then drain it. Fill the sinks up. A lot of times, I'm not saying, but maybe plumbers will just run it. Yeah, it's good. You know, I fill them up and then I drain them. And then by the time you come downstairs, you know, now if there's any leaks, you know, you're going to see it. It's going to show up on the ceiling. I will look with my thermal gun that way too for leaks with a thermal imaging camera. Again, you know, you want to back that anomaly up. If I find something, I don't just point, you know, hey, we got a leak. Then I take my moisture meter and go over that same area. You know, if it's on a ceiling or on a wall, is this really what I think we're seeing here? You know, a leak or so. Those are some of the, you know, how I would do the electrical and plumbing of a home.
I think some of the more costly items that most buyers want to know about is the HVAC system working? Is there any plumbing leaks, or is the water heater, you know, functioning to its full capacity? Is the electrical safe? Is the roof waterproof? Right.
Well, I got a good story about that, and this is only a one-time deal so far, but I looked at a home and it was actually probably 3 years old. So we're getting off of a new home, but actually this is something that wasn't done when it was built. So somebody was buying this home and I went to do their inspection, and when I got to the point where I was going in the attic, and I hadn't really noticed, it was hot, it's summertime, the HVAC's running, I turned it down, I ran the heat, and then waited, and then we turned the AC on, and we're looking for temperature drops in that. A good temperature drop, by the way, when you're running your AC between your return and your supply, you're looking for 16. Like 16 to 20. That's kind of what you're looking for there. So, but anyway, when I accessed the attic, there was no insulation in this attic. It had gotten looked over, I guess, during the building process. There was no insulation blown in or bad or nothing in this home.
So that energy bill would have been through the roof.
Well,
had you not caught that, right?
So yeah, so I when I reported this to first the realtor that I was working with, I explained, and I explained in the report as well to the client. I said, the insulation's one thing, and whoever can get a company in here and blow it full, and it's not a huge deal. But I said, the HVAC now, we're talking about a 3-year-old HVAC, and I said that has definitely shortened the life of that. Here in Florida, South Florida, we
live off
HVACs are
these
working
things.
hard anyway. They're really getting a workout.
24/7.
But this HVAC in particular, it had to really be overworked. With night and day, for 3 years, running
right.
probably, they need to cycle on and off, and there's a formula for that, how many times in an hour, but I guarantee you this one was probably running continuously.
So tell me a little bit about your services. So you have probably a general inspection. Is it dependent on the size of the home?
We have a base price.
Okay.
that we work with. We do have some add-ons, and air quality, microbiological growth is one that we perform.
That's huge. I mean, in Florida, we've got
It
moisture issues.
Right. You're looking for, a healthy home, you're looking at 55% humidity. That's like the best scenario. And on a new home, you won't always find, that as an issue where, when I'm looking at a used or older home for someone, if I see something, then I can swab that. You shouldn't be in a brand new home. Hopefully you're not visually seeing anything. Down here, being in Florida too, most homes have a pool. So the pool, and it's not. A lot of times, people are like, well, what are you actually looking at when you're looking at the pool? Well. One is your barriers. You're either, that your doors are your lanai screen doors are opening and shutting. Their latches are above 54 inches. Same with the house with alarms. If you have alarms on the doors and windows and/or a child barrier, these are major things in Florida.
Anything that has direct access to the pool.
To the pool, because Florida, I think the last I heard was like #1 in children under 2 drowning.
Yep.
So you're definitely checking all your barriers. We're not just saying, hey, the water's clear, the lights look pretty,
Right.
We're looking. And then another important thing with your equipment is your bonding. And there needs to be a number 8 bonding wire connected to anything metal within 5 feet. So that would be your lanai cage, your pump motor, your heater, those things. And you'd be surprised sometimes we find them loose or disconnected or they never was hooked up.
That's a hazard to the future homeowner.
That's a hazard. And what I find a lot, not so much, I have found it on new builds, not so much on new builds as much though, is GFCI protection for the pump. Sometimes they'll just throw a breaker in there, and it's directly wired to the breaker, and it's not a ground fault, circuit interrupter.
So after Hurricane Ian, he did a lot of roof checks. People wanted to know if there were any damage, and then if he found anything, then he went ahead and did an attic check, which you may want to talk about some of the crazy stuff you find in attics.
What you're seeing is they use an 8D nail, and they want it nailed, every 6 inches on your sheathing, on your roof sheathing. Right. And what I find a lot with these roofers,
they're missing the trusses.
They miss the trusses. And you're gonna miss a truss here and there, okay. And I've found builders that look like they hand nailed everything. I'm struggling to find an 8 that I can get a photo of. But then you find these with the nail gun, and you'll see where they miss the truss, and they miss it all the way, from top to bottom, the whole cord. That's not good. So we do find that. I was on a new build. Well, first of all, I've found a lot of discrepancies with shingled roofs. A lot of the just installed incorrectly.
Right.
They're not sealed down. What I find a lot is on the what we're supposed, what they want to see now is the dimensional shingle. But back in the day when they came out, we would because I've done quite a bit of roofing back in the day. We would take 3 tabs and we would cut, and that's how you would get your ridge caps. Well, they make ridge caps for dimensional shingles. What I see builders run out, and then they will just take whatever they got left here, dimensional shingles that aren't design. They're designed for the field, not to be stretched over the ridge, and they'll stick up. And down here that's probably a real issue with the storm event, with wind.
Right.
But they'll finish the roof off that way, and that's not the purpose or design of those shingles. And it just, take a little more pride in your work. Even if you can't see it, a lot of times I tell people, you can't really see this from the street, but, again, like we just was, if you're spending that kind of money on a new home, you want it right? I was looking at the bottom, the underside of the shingle. So and here in Florida, that's very important with the SWR, or that membrane, it's like an ice and water shield up north, the peel and stick, or even just a synthetic, whatever they use, but there was nothing there. So I'm basically looking at the back side of the shingles. So that's a problem. That's so something scary. That could get overlooked. Even I could have overlooked it. I just found it through a crack. But so that's it's just you never know what you're going to find.
You never know, and I think that's the important.
And I worry sometimes at night what I miss. I'm just going to be honest. Because it's hard to find and the attics are 150 degrees, 160 degrees.
And you start to ask yourself, are these people doing their jobs? And that goes from the home builders, the field workers, the city and county inspectors. Everybody needs to do their job. And
Correct.
The fact that you're able to catch so much of this is scary. It's frightening. So I appreciate you sharing this. But we'll wrap up here, where I hope you learned something new. I hope you understand the importance of home inspections, whether it's new construction, yes, even our houses. Please call Jason and Bridget with home dwelling checks in order to determine whether our builds or any new construction builds are built to how they're supposed to. And at the end of the day, it could save you money, it could save you exposure to dangers, and it could even save lives, like Bridget mentioned with young children and pools. So we hope you learned something today. We're excited to have you as our guest, and hopefully next week we'll be talking about financial services. So tune in for that.